This week we're talking all about how to run iconic D&D monsters. We'll jump into the Mimic, the Owlbear, the Mind Flayer, and the Beholder, plus a giveaway for a book that'll make it all that little bit easier. Welcome to We Speak Common. Hello and welcome to another episode of the D&D podcast for everyone, because here we speak common. This is the show brought to you in partnership with the wonderful fellows over at the Dice Dungeon, your one-stop shop for dice, both metal and resin, and now official published WotC D&D books. I have already got my copy of Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft on hold, ready to go on pre-order when it releases, and you can do that too, and of course get 10% off all of the items in your basket if you use the code WeSpeakCommon at checkout or follow the description below. We're also brought to you in partnership with Describe, that's DSCRYB. If you're a fantasy DM with more campaign ideas than prep time, then Describe are perfect for you. They offer over 1,500 scenes of places, monsters, and spells with a collection that keeps growing. Just like box text for from your favourite adventure book, but designed to be read aloud in your own campaign. You can get your creative energies free for all the other things around D&D prep other than that lovely creative writing, because their professionals will do it for you. You can visit Describe, DSCRYB.com, to use the code COMMON on checkout and save 10% off your subscription every single month. But they also have a bunch of free scenes, so just go and have a look and use those anyway, because, hey, they're free. This show, of course, is supported by our amazing Patreons who constantly chat away to us about different D&D things, but also, non-D&D things, and the show on our private Discord server. If you want to support the show and get involved and get extra goodies like a full item book that is out now, then head over to the Patreon, links in the description below. As ever, I will shamelessly try and sell those things to my guest on today's episode, who you know very well as my good friend James. How you doing, James?
Pretty good, thanks, Ben.
Good. Last time you were here, we fanboyed over... Well, it's 3 episodes ago. We fanboyed over Eberron.
Yeah, bit of a mess, but we got there in the
end. Yeah, okay. Not our finest hour. It was a bit of a mess, but we had a lot to get through. But yeah, it was a lot of fun chatting, and I didn't realise that the last episode you were on was a Legends and Lore as well as this one, so that's a funny coincidence. But we go.
It's my specialty, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, you are the person I share lore things with all the time, so it makes sense. So today is a Legends and Lore on monsters and how to use that lore in the typical way, but also in new, fun and creative ways in your D&D games, whether they're homebrew or not. And it's one thing that I've particularly wanted to talk about, using monsters in good ways, for a while, because I picked up a book. I say picked up, I was gifted from the wonderful Phoebe a book that I think 5 out of 7 or 6 people, like it's either 5 out of 6 or 6 out of 7 people now own from our regular D&D group.
Yeah, we all near enough have it now, along with its counterpart.
And it is very, very good, and it's a book that I want to share with the world, and so I will be doing a giveaway this week, so of a copy, one single copy, because I'm not rich, but we will talk about those details and the book a little bit later on, but I promise you it ties in and it will change your life as both a DM and a player, I think, personally.
It definitely gives a different aspect to fighting those creatures.
Oh yeah oh yes. So I put out a tweet about as of recording 4 or 5 days ago, asking when I say iconic D&D creature, what comes to your mind? So I think I know what the answer is for you, James, but do you want to go and tell me?
Dragons.
Yeah.
It's in the name.
Yeah. For me, it's Beholder. But I spent a lot of time around Beholders and Liches. Beholders and Liches are like D&D icons for me, I think.
Yeah, I think my second favourite, obviously ignoring the obvious, is definitely Illithids and Mind Flayers.
Yeah, 100%. And they are one of the reasons why I've asked you to join me today. So a lot of the replies would be what you'd expect. We had Mind Flayers, Xanathids, Beholders, Dragons, and then a couple of others, which I guess kind of are like, for me, an iconic one that never came up was the Gelatinous Cube. That's an iconic D&D monster.
Yeah.
But a couple that came up were Mimics and Owlbears as well. So we are going to go through today the lore and how to use and make the most out of Mimics, Owlbears, Beholders, Mind Flayers, and we're going to touch on dragons as well, because I can't get you on an episode and not talk about dragons. That would just be cruel. But we have talked about dragons before, so we'll throw to that later as well if you want more on them. So I want to start with the two that kind of made me go, oh yeah, those are iconic creatures too, which is Mimics and Owlbears. So James, would you like to start with the Mimic or the Owlbear today?
Let's start with the Mimic, because that's my favourite of the two.
Okay. Oh, okay. I have a soft spot for Owlbears, but I'll go with it.
So I like Mimics just in terms of, I feel you can be a bit more creative with them than you can with the Owlbear. But that might just be me.
No, that's fair. That's fair. So if you want to read along, I mean, feel free. Mimics in the Monster Manual. Done a lot of talking today, sorry, are on page 220. So everybody knows what a mimic is. These are iconic creatures, but just in case you don't and you're new to D&D, hello, don't worry, we're speaking common, it's fine to be new here. Mimics are creatures that shapeshift into objects and items and surroundings in order to be a predatory ambushing creature. The typical one is a chest or a door, and they will lie in wait for you to wander along, and then they will grab you and eat you and devour you. That's pretty fair, right?
That sounds about right.
Yeah. They're a CR2 creature, 12 armor class, average hit points of 58, 15 foot speed, so they're pretty slow creatures. Dark vision at 60 foot, a +5 to stealth, immunities to acid and prone, and they can shapeshift. Now, lore-wise, looking into, and I'm not going into real world lore, because some of the real world lore on how these creatures were created is kind of convoluted and mixed into like what were the different inspirations and who actually came up with it and stuff. So lore-wise, in game, they are basically. I couldn't find anything on how they evolved into what they are, but the way I imagine it is that they were like kind of like octopus who used to blend into their environment and then kind of evolved from there.
So I found two possible options, and it's that the first is the usual one, is they were made by wizards because they needed needed things to protect the stuff, and the other is that they've popped over from the Far Realm.
So that's cool. I've never read that one. The Far Realm is one of those places. We should do a whole episode on the Far Realm, but the Far Realm is one of those places that's always intrigued me as an interesting plot device. So that's quite cool, because they're a monstrosity. They're not an aberration, say. So you could really put them from anywhere.
Yeah, but at the same time, because they're a monstrosity, they're not entirely natural either. So there has to be something a bit off about them.
Yeah, a bit magical and mystical and broken in sense. Yeah. So it's fun. They're described as cunning creatures, but statistically, they've got a 5 intelligence. They do have quite a high wisdom. They've got 13 wisdom for a monstrosity, which is pretty good. But they're basic. For me, they basically run on instinct. They alter their outward texture to resemble things like wood, stone, and other basic materials, and have evolved to assume the appearance of objects that other creatures are likely to come into contact with. So doors, chests, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. If you're going up against adventurers, a chest is a pretty good bet for them wanting to come and open you.
Problem with that one is, though, it's a bit expected at this point.
Yeah, it's pretty standard, and I mean that is the image that they use in the Monster Manual is a mimic as a chest, but we'll get to that. It says that they are a mimic is in its altered form is nearly unrecognizable until potential prey blunders into its reach, whereupon the monster sprouts pseudopods and attacks. When it changes shape, a mimic excretes an adhesive that helps it seize prey and weapons that touch it. The adhesive is absorbed when the mimic assumes its amorphous form and on parts the mimic uses to move itself. They live and hunt alone, though they occasionally share their feeding grounds with other creatures. Let's put a pin in that. We'll come back to that. Although most mimics have only predatory intelligence, a rare few evolve greater cunning and the ability to carry on simple conversations in common or undercommon, which is, again, let's put a pin in that. That's a lot of fun. Such mimics might allow safe passage through the domains or provide useful information in exchange for food. Statistically, looking at their stat block, it can polymorph using an action, so there's nothing to say it can't run and hide if it got to low HP. Their adhesive is a huge or smaller creature adhered to a mimic is also grappled by it with an escape DC of 13. Their false appearance means that you literally can't see them if they are still. So there is no way of spotting a mimic until it is obviously a mimic.
Yep.
And they have the grappler feat, so they have advantage on attacks when something's grappled. Two attacks, pseudopod and bite. Okay. What is your immediate thoughts?
I've always found the base mimic stat block really underwhelming.
Yes, I agree.
Like, I remember I went to put a mimic in something and I looked and was like, no, it wouldn't last. And so I found a greater mimic stat block from somewhere else instead.
So this is the thing with iconic creatures, is that I feel like they never really meet your expectations, but also the benefit of that is that lots of people have given it a go to make them bigger and stronger. So there are lots. You can search mimic stat blocks and get tons of different ones, third-party ones online.
The next thing is the sticky stuff. You read that and you think, fine, yeah, it can grab hold of somebody, make it difficult to escape, and then pulling the book out that we may be giving away. It mentions anything can stick to it. So if they make an attack, the weapon sticks, they then have to spend next turn trying to pull their weapon off, which could make it a bit more interesting.
So we'll get to that in a second, but I agree. It's kind of it's one of those things where flavor text gives you an idea that I don't really feel the stat block quite reaches. It does a good job to get there, but especially if I was going to put a mimic up against you guys, where it says they're solo predators and solo hunters, like your party would cakewalk a mimic on its own. So I think for the gag of, or for saying you've come up against a mimic, just putting one and using it as is and not having it as a challenge is great. That's going to work fine. If you just want to put a mimic against your party and have them experience that combat, then fine. But if you're putting it up against a party of people who know what they're doing or need to build it so it's a little bit more of a challenge or feels a little bit more fleshed out, then there are some great options. So the book that has changed the way I look at combat is not a secret book. Many people know about this book, but I just need to share it with more people. And that is Keith Aman's The Monsters Know What They're Doing. Oh my God, James, this book changed my life.
It changed all of our lives and in fact nearly killed several of our alter lives.
So this is 535 pages of every single monster in the monster manual broken down into a proper here's how they would act in combat. And it's got some really good reviews from people like Joe Manganiello, R.A. Salvatore, Matthew Lillard, like people who know D&D reviewing this book and saying it's good. And you can get it anywhere, but I will be offering you the chance to get one via a giveaway, which we'll talk about later. So looking at mimics in this book, who are on page... I've forgotten. Do you know what page they're on?
Not off the top of my head.
Oh,
picks up own copy and goes to contents page quickly. 179.
Well, you found that quicker than me. James is a mental reader, by the way. If you ever know someone who can read very quickly, James finishes a book in like 3 hours.
As you say, it's my superpower.
Yeah, one I'm very jealous of because I want to read more and just don't have the time. 179.
Yeah.
Cool. So Keith does a lot to set up the fact that, yes, mimics have been around since AD&D. They are an iconic monster, and goes into, and this is what I love about this book and how it's informed a lot of my combat choices, is thinking about how the creature would act in the actual fight if things aren't going its way, and if they are. How would it act if, like, it's a hunter, right? So it's sitting in its waiting. What does it do once it's got someone, other than just attack each turn?
Yeah, it's how it'd act if it were a real creature as opposed to just in your imagination.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he lays out a couple of points. The mimic chooses a disguise, and then it lies in wait in the approach of some form of prey. It then attacks with surprise because they don't know it's there, using its pseudopod to grapple its target, who has disadvantage on the escape checks because of its adhesive surface ability. It then attacks against the grappled victim with its bite attack because it has advantage on the attack because it has the grappler feat, which does more damage than pseudopod as well, so it makes more sense for it to do that. And then he says, my own extrapolation is that once the victim is reduced to 0 HP, the mimic starts eating it and just biting it because, you know, that's what it would do. It's there to eat them, right? But then what happens if the mimic gets attacked when it's trying to eat its prey? Well, it will probably grab them and move and drag the body with them, which is something I don't think anybody ever does in D&D content, and if combat, and if they do, they don't do it enough. Like, this is a hunter prey, right? If it's killed something, or it's trying to kill something, and that's its prey, it's not going to just give it up, you know?
Yeah, I don't think we've ever done anything like that in our games before.
No, and you will definitely be seeing it more often now. So I think just straight away, that's a fantastic way to give it some flavour in combat is, okay, it's got its prey, it's going to grab them and keep them and take them away. Also, suddenly makes it much more deadly because it's not a creature that's got intelligence that's going to go, okay, well, I've killed this one, so I'm going to kill the other one now. No, I've killed this one, I'm going to eat it. This is my dinner.
Yeah.
Go on, you were going to say something.
I like the idea of combining that with the acid feature. So the idea of not necessarily they'll grab it and say your mimic's in like a chest form, they'll sort of have the person half hanging in their mouth, and instead of having to actively take its turn to bite, it's going to be sat in a pool of acid, being sort of like melted away.
It's saliva and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Yeah, and that's definitely a way to add just some deadliness, is to give it some sort of... No, you don't have to give it an acid spray, just give it an acidy mouth so that when it bites it does extra damage. Well, it does that already, doesn't it? But
yeah,
when it's not biting, yeah. You get what I'm saying. The acid is there, so why would it stop hurting if you were just sat in its mouth?
Yeah.
Yeah. The other really nice thing you alluded to earlier, the adhesive trait, the fact that it is meant to be sticky everywhere and not just if you touch it. Yeah, so Keith says, well, that means surely if you're going to attack it with a sword, that sword is going to stick to it as well.
Yeah, I think you could really put things up, because it doesn't mention anything about just because your weapon's magic it won't stick.
No.
Like, you can have this idea of that if this mimic has a weapon stuck to it and it's trying to get away, they might lose that important weapon to them.
Yeah, and you can do that with in a number of ways. You can do it with things like swords, but imagine if the barbarian, not barbarian, that doesn't make sense, the paladin, like, shield bashes. Oh my god, words. Shield bashes it, and the shield comes off his arm. Like, that's suddenly very dynamic, and maybe the mimic's AC goes up because it's now got a shield attached to its face. Like, stuff like that. Like, just thinking about the lore in the description of the creature and extrapolating extra stuff from that you can do is a great way, I think, to increase the versatility of what is originally a challenge rating 2 creature.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the fact that they are lone hunters, because I think that, and I've seen it come up before, and actually in Tasha's there is a piece of art that is really evocative of this feeling. I've seen people talk before about mimic colonies.
Yeah.
Like, what if you had a colony of mimics where you and Sam was saying the other day he wants to do one where like the players go to a town, but the whole town is mimics.
Yeah, for a long time I've had sat in my back pocket, and I don't think I'm ever going to use it on you guys. A trap which was it was just a barracks where nearly all of the objects in there were mimics, and the idea was you go in there, you start searching for stuff, and then oh no, you're now being eaten by like 15 mimics which just happened to be sat in this room.
And I think that's so cool. Like and having it set up that way as well, like where it's such a what's the phrase I'm looking for? Such a subversion to your expectations as a player that you think, oh, we're just going to go to a town, or oh, we're just going to go to a dungeon or a room, and then everything in there is suddenly trying to kill you. And this is one of those things I think people get very, and I used to do it when I was a baby DM. I would get very nervous to change things in the set lore, like, oh, but they're solo hunters. They don't have to be. Change that. And if you've got people in your game that know that lore, even better, because they'll be like, whoa, hang on, what's going on?
Yeah, make them intelligent too. It doesn't say they're all dumb.
Well, no, that's the point.
You can get intelligent ones. And if you've got a room or a colony, it could be that there's a couple of intelligent ones coordinating all of these other mimics so they can better hunt, which would make feasible sense.
Yeah, a rare few evolve greater cunning and the ability to carry out a simple conversation in common or undercommon. So, like, I think it would be a bit weird to have like a mimic general, like mimics who can organize and be a society, because then you're moving away from what they are and you're moving into like shapeshifters.
In a sense, you have more like a pack leader than a general, if you will.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. You could add the pack tactics trait to them and make them stronger in that way. And then you've gone from a CR2 to like, I don't know, a group of CR4s or something.
Yeah.
Which is just really cool. And I think that the Mimic is one of those... There's not a lot to say here, which is why I think this was one of the good ones to start with. It's one of those ones where if you just use it in that, and the door's a Mimic, you're doing it an injustice, in my opinion.
Pro tip, if you don't want to use a pack of them, make a Mimic an entire room.
Oh, you've done that to us.
I did that to you, and I feel really bad now because knowing what I know now, I could have ran that a lot better.
To be fair, though, and this is the thing with iconic monsters, no matter how bad, like, if you look back and you think, oh, that was bad, I could have done that better, like, no matter how, quote-unquote, bad it was, it's still going to be iconic because of the creature. And I remember... What do I remember that? We're talking years ago.
Yeah, so the way it panned out is I had it...
I know that I was...
The whole room is the Mimic, but
I know that I was in the middle of the room at one point, and
inside
that was like
the room,
of his mouth.
There's a chest, and there's two people sort of outside of it that are going, oh, come on, let's go. And then the chest opens and eats one of them. The idea being you go, oh my god, burst in, try and help these people out, and hang on a minute, it was just a ploy all by this Mimic.
Yeah. And that's so good because okay, so I remember seeing those people and seeing them get attacked and be like, oh no, we're heroes, let's help. And the idea that the Mimic can, like, not just sit very still, like, this is an evolved Mimic, so it's not just like the normal Mimic sits very still, you don't know it's a Mimic, but this one sits very still and has a moving part of it that looks so natural that it tricks you. Like, that's like the next evolution of the Mimic, which was really cool. And you're then like in its mouth fighting it, which is like a stress beyond anything I've experienced before as a player. Like, I'm sitting in its gob getting attacked. I need to do something.
I remember some people were stuck outside, whereas I think you and someone else was in there, the acid was coating the walls.
And it's like, and if I go down, I'm not just down, like, I'm dead because I'm in this creature's mouth. Like, all it has to do is swallow me at that point. And once you know that, like, the whole room's a Mimic, you're suddenly like, well, God, how big is this thing then? Yeah. Because it would be huge. I was going to say something else that you'd done there that stood out. What was it? The fact that the Mimic was a room, that it had... I don't know, the thought's gone. But,
yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah. But yeah, so... take those mimics and really change them up and utilize the flavor text rather than the mechanical text. I think is how you make them much more
impactful.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. That's a really good word for it. Cool. I feel like we haven't talked much about the Mimic, but do you have anything else to say for it? Because I think that's kind of it.
I think that is kind of it, because there isn't a huge amount of lore on them. They're fairly simple creatures, so they are what they are. Which
is fun though, because you can build your own lore. So go crazy. Okay, let's look at the Owlbear then. And I'm going to be honest with you, I have a soft spot for Owlbears, but I also, while thinking about this episode and talking about, iconic creatures, I thought of a fun way to use an Owlbear. So let's talk about what the Owlbear is, and then I'll tell you what my new fun way of using them would be. So the Owlbear is on page 249 of the Monster Manual. They are, they're described as an Owlbear screech echoes through dark valleys and benighted forests, piercing the quiet night to announce the death of its prey. They've got a reputation of being deadly ferocious and aggressive, having stubbornness, and the sheer ill temper of one of them makes them a feared predator. They are always hungry. They hunt at night. They are a large monstrosity. 59 average hit points, armor class of 13, 40 foot speed, dark vision, keen sight and smell, and they have 2 attacks as a multi-attack. And this is one of those monstrosities where the lore is that a wizard just made one day.
Why not?
Just a mad man in a hat. Yeah.
Squish.
Let's just combine those two things because I need a minion.
Yeah.
Which is fun though, because what other weird creatures could you mash together in that way?
Frog and a bear frog.
Yeah, I mean, you'd end up with a frog-hemoth type thing as well, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. A camel and a dragon.
That just sounds like it'd be a horrifying mess.
It's just anarchy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I imagine that's what the wizard did. He went, I need a creature, I need something really scary. Well, I'll take a bear. And I'll add an owl. Who thinks of an owl? But I love it. I love it a lot. But yeah, they're a challenge rating 3, which is, yeah, I guess so. But if you give them their full hit points, that they're 7d10 plus 21, that's a maximum hit points of
91.
91, yeah, which is pretty good for 3rd level characters to fight. That's a lot of hit points.
Make it like a mini boss, if you will.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, they are said to have a den in a cave or some sort of ruin that would usually be littered with bones, and it says it drags partially devoured kills back to its den, storing portions of the carcass among the surrounding rocks, bushes, and trees. The scent of blood and rotting flesh hangs heavy near an owlbear's lair, attracting scavengers and thus luring more prey. That's horrifying. And yet that is not how I have perceived owlbears at all.
No, in fact, the encounter that sticks in my mind with owlbears is when we got the baby one.
Yeah. You helped an owlbear give birth. Because, and I see this as well in the tweet, replies to the tweet. People sent gifs of owlbears, and they were owlbears frolicking in the forest. They weren't scary predators. They were these cuddly they were cuddly owlbears.
Yeah, they don't frolic. They just sit and allow the screams of dying animals to draw in more animals for them to eat.
That's horrifying. That's
cool,
so dark. Yeah, it's really cool. So I think my thoughts on this one are obviously use any creature however you want, and I have used owlbears to be fun, cute, fluffy creatures. And it does actually say in their lore that although they are more intelligent than most animals, owlbears are difficult to tame. However, with enough time, food, and luck, an intelligent creature can train an owlbear to recognize it as a master. It later says people of remote frontier settlements have even succeeded at racing owlbears. That's fucking cool.
Yeah.
But spectators bet often on which owlbear will attack its handler as much as they do on who will finish the race first. Elven communities encourage owlbears to den beneath their treetop villages, using beasts as natural defense during the night. Hobgoblins favor owlbears as war beasts, and hill giants and frost giants sometimes keep owlbears as pets. A starved owlbear might show up in a gladiatorial arena, ruthlessly eviscerating and devouring its foes before a bloodthirsty audience. So there's two ways of using this then in the random encounter wilderness creature, which is really cool and could either be, oh wow, look at this majestic owlbear, or oh my god, look at this owlbear, it's going to come and bite my head off. Or in the ogres are attacking, and then a goblin rides through on the back of an owlbear, and you've now got to deal with an owlbear as well as all the ogres.
You could also use them as that subverting expectations again, as you have people going missing or something like that, and they've heard weird cries coming from a nearby cave. They go in expecting some eldritch horror and find an owlbear.
This is what I was thinking of. This is something I've never done before, but absolutely would be a low-level adventure that I want to run now, and that is that you set up the thing of, okay, people are going missing. Bloody trails of guts have been found in the forest. Bones are littering some areas of the woods, and in the night, the village hears these guttural cries and screams. What the fuck is going on? Like, people think that is a demon, right? But you follow the clues, and you get stalked by something, like players maybe getting followed by something in the woods, but they don't see it, they just hear it and feel its sense, and it turns out to be this massive owlbear. Like, that's such a, oh, it's just an owlbear. But then you run it properly, and it wipes the floor with them.
Even if it doesn't wipe the floor with them, give it a baby.
Why?
Because then they'll feel really bad because that owlbear was just getting fed for his baby.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, I know players who'd be like, well, I mean, it still killed the village people. But like, yeah, but how many good songs did the village people really put out there? Come on. You know, so that was really quick-witted of me. I'm sorry, I'm proud of that one. That's a good way of tugging on the heartstrings. So how would you make it effective in combat?
I'm really not sure.
Okay. I'm kind of glad you said that. I'm also a little bit disappointed.
It's, in my mind, it's just a beast. It's very much like the Mimic in a sense.
You just have it attack and then attack. And then attack.
I think, like we said, we'd have it drag off its prey, because that's its main stick, but other than that, I wouldn't know what to do with it.
Okay, so this is where the Monsters Know What They're Doing comes into play and has informed how I would use the owlbear. So owlbears are on page 140 of this tome, and it is a tome. And Keith describes the owlbear as the brute category of like attack. They are they've got massive strength, 20 strength. They're kind of dexterous. They've got great perception and dark vision, which is why they work well at night, and they can be used as a creature that can incite the fear of the party by having them stalk. He suggests that because they haven't got, they're 3 intelligence, they're not intelligence. Because they don't have intelligence, they're not sophisticated enough to have like tactics, right? So if it senses its prey, have it dash after it if it's more than 80 feet away, the noise of which will prevent it from surprising, but that's scary in itself, having this huge creature running at you. If they're between 40 and 80 feet away, it would move its speed forward, so 40 feet, and then have it ready the claw action against the first creature that comes in with range. If it's less than 40 feet away, it charges in and multi-attacks them, so it claws and bites.
Yeah.
That's how it starts its combat, and immediately your player's going to go, oh shit, what are we dealing with? What I think makes the owlbear dynamic in combat is it's a bit twofold. So the bad side of its intelligence is that let's say I'm a player and you're a player, we're fighting an owlbear. I attack the owlbear, it turns its attention on me. Because it's not very intelligent, you attack the owlbear, it's going to turn its attention on you. So it's never going to be one of those creatures that will pick the weakest person and go for it, unless you want to go for the narrative that the owlbear is hunting for food for its baby, and it sees, oh, that fighter has a lot of meat on its bones. I'm gonna go and grab that. I'm hungry.
But at the same time, I would say, in terms of the stalking aspect, maybe it does stalk and it does go for the squishy wizard at the back because that looks like the easy target for them to grab and then drag away.
Yeah, that's a good shout. And this is the thing as well, like, we're saying they're not very intelligent. You could have a more intelligent owlbear that's lived for a long time and knows how to hunt. That would be cool. And if you've got, I mean, we're not talking about trained owlbears, but a trained owlbear might have the ability to, A, follow commands, but B, pick which target it needs to go for. It depends on what narrative you're going for, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I think to make the owlbear dynamic, instead of having it be a creature that's just going to turn up and be like, oh, these people are in my habitat, or oh, I'm going to attack these people because they've stumbled on me. Have it be a hungry creature that's looking for food. They like to hunt at night, so maybe it comes into the camp. It picks one person out of the 4 that it can see that it's going to go for, and it doesn't just try and kill them and move on to the next. It kills them, and then it's like, okay, well, I've got my food now, I'm going to take it, and it picks it up and pulls it away. And then you've got this fun, interesting dynamic of the other players trying to go and capture the owlbear, but also get their friend back from being pulled to some death den.
Yeah, I feel like the friend would be dead before they could get there.
Yeah. I mean, that depends how merciful you are as a DM, I suppose.
Yeah, but that has just given me another idea, and I'll feel really bad if you then use this on us. In a survival game where you're tracking things like rations and food,
like Team of Annihilation.
Like Team of Annihilation. Why not have it be like an actual bear, and it will come into the camp, and instead of attacking somebody, it will just grab the pack of rations or whatever and run off with it.
Oh my god, like it's the Yogi Owlbear.
Yeah. Sorry guys.
Oh, you could totally massively subvert expectations, go to the Feywild and have a Yogi Owlbear. Yogi and Boo Boo. Get in their picnic baskets. Oh, that'd be incredible.
Little jacket and a hat.
Oh my god, that would be amazing.
I feel like the hat would need to be a fez, though.
Yeah. Oh, for an owlbear, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We've gone the complete opposite of where we started that conversation. I'm like, yeah, they're ferocious beasts. They hunt and they pull people away to their death, and their lair smells like flesh.
And now it wears a fez.
Yeah, now wears a fez and steals your picnics. But this is the thing. I think both of those are quite iconic in a way. But yeah, with the owlbear, I think it's all about making them terrifying. Because in the same sense, like in the real world, I have never seen a bear. Like in the real world. I don't live in bear country. We don't have bears.
No bears here.
No bear. There's no animals in the UK, as we know. They all got banned. So, sorry, it's an inside joke. Yeah, I love you, Ray. So I have never seen a bear, and in my eyes, I'm like, oh, bears are cool. They're big, fluffy, cute creatures. No, bears are terrifying. Bears will kill you. You know?
They will chase you down. You will climb up that tree, and it will follow you right up there.
Arguably, an owlbear would be even better at following you up a tree because it's part owl. Imagine an owlbear that had wings. I mean, logistically, physically, that wouldn't be able to fly, but that's terrifying.
I don't even want to know how big the wingspan would have to be.
Oh no, I'm imagining it having like wings under its arms that never actually function. like it's evolved from. I don't know how an owl and a bear evolve into the same creature, but it's evolved into a bear owl that has wings that it can't use.
The same explanation as always, Ben. Wizards.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. So make them ferocious, make them scary. Speaking of wizards, there is a incredible tool that all wizards need to create monsters, and that is a perfect set of dice, James.
Perfect set of dice, indeed. Roll those high HP values.
I don't know how caught up on your spellcasting you are, but math rocks are one of the key core spellcasting components that all wizard needs. You have a lot of rocks.
I have many math rocks.
What is your favourite set of math rocks?
My favourite set of math rocks.
And just to be clear, I need you to lie and say they're from the Dice Dungeon.
I'm not even going to lie. They are from the Dice Dungeon, and it is that golden. I can never remember the name.
Kirill the Golden.
Kirill the Golden. That's the one.
I just want to clarify for Ben, who will be listening from the Dice Dungeon, that when I say I need you to lie, it's because I thought you were going to call out that ridiculously expensive set of Wizards of the Coast licensed dice that you own.
Oh no, they're like second favourite because.
Oh, okay. Well, that's telling you how quality the Dice Dungeon dice are. Then
I do really like my Kirill set. Like if I've got an important role, I pull out Kirill.
That means a lot to me and Joe. I'm talking for Joe here, but I assume it means a lot for him because we actually built the lore for those dice, and it was a lot of fun. And it makes me feel really good when anyone ever buys that set, or whenever I see anyone on Twitter using that set or celebrating they've got them, because I'm like, oh, that's the dice I have read the lore for. But yeah, you can go and check out the Kirill the Golden dice. They are gorgeous, and all of the other dice, and now extra things that you can buy for the Dice Dungeon. They're not just a dungeon full of dice. They have expanded things like actual published Wizards of the Coast books. So go and have a look, and don't forget you can get 10% off with your code We Speak Common on your checkout. The other thing that would be really good for helping to build out these encounters, James, is of course beautiful flavor text. Now, I'm not bad at writing flavor text. You know, I'm pretty good, but I'm no expert. I'm no actual awarded writer. Whereas the people over at Describe are.
Saves so much time as well. So laborious writing out those passages.
Oh my god. The hours I have lost to writing them out. And like, sometimes I don't even like doing it because I'm like, I'm just going to wing it on the day. But I know that if I wing it on the day, it won't be as good.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes you need something that's just right. But going to Describe, DSCYB.com, will give you a great starting point if you need to change it up. Or just over 1,500 scenes to use there on the go. I would go and check out their Owlbear related flavor text for running an Owlbear, because I'm sure they will have something that will perfectly fit the theme and the tone that you want to go for.
Your description of your Owlbear may turn into a David Attenborough documentary, just as a fair warning.
Oh my god, that would be amazing too. Imagine having a David Attenborough styled encounter because you're... Oh my god, that's a quest. Okay, here's how you use an iconic creature like the Owlbear. The PCs are hired by someone who is like trying to study owlbears to work out if they're natural occurring or made by a wizard, and you have to protect them as they study the owlbear from 80 feet back, and then they decide they want to get closer, and the owlbear senses them and smells them. Oh, that would be amazing! That would be so good.
See, accidentally come up with ideas on the fly. It's great.
All thanks to Describe, DSRYCB.com. Code common for 10% off. Okay. I hope that's kind of set an idea of a couple of things you can do with iconic creatures. James, I'm going to let you take the floor for this next one because I know it is one of your favourites. You have killed many of us to them before, and that is the Mind Flayer.
Oh, they are just beautiful creatures in the most horrifying of senses.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a bit subjective. So, Mind Flayers, what page are Mind Flayers on? 221 of the Monster Manual, if you want to follow along.
Yes. However, I would recommend, if you really want to get to grip with Mind Flayers, get the I think you can get it maybe on DM's Guild still, the Lords of Madness PDF from 3.5e.
Oh, calling out the old editions. Oh. Okay, I do not know that one. So Mind Flayers in Monster Manual, there's only technically it's 2 pages. It's a page of lore and a page of stat blocks. And it's 1 stat block. And then obviously Volo's Guide to Monsters massively increases on that lore and gives stat blocks. But what is in the 3.5 book that is worth reading?
It's just a lot more information in terms of how their societies run, different kinds of ceremorphosis, all that sort of good stuff.
That's really cool because I do not know that stuff. So the lore that I know for Mind Flayers is probably kind of like the surface lore and then a little bit deeper. So obviously Mind Flayers, also known as illithids, were once the, how do they say it? The scourge of the sentient creatures across countless worlds. They are, they were at one point a huge empire, and they enslaved lots of races, and they did lots of experiments and bad things. And then one day, and it's never actually, I don't think, excuse me, I don't think it's ever actually elaborated on what exactly happened, but their slave race, the Gith, who became the Githyanki and the Githzerai, rebelled and destroyed the illithid civilization, and they are now like in hiding in mini colonies all over the place.
Yeah, that's where that Lord of Madness really blew my mind.
Okay.
Because the Mind Flayers in the Faerunian universe now, if you will, are actually from the future. Like
what?
It says at the end of time, they're facing some like unnamed threat, extinction level threat. They all get together with all these elder brains, sacrifice them ritually, and the psychic shock from that sends them all back in time, several millennia, and that's at the point where they enslave the Gith and then start building up again.
Okay, well that's bonkers. I did not know that. Obviously, the caveat of using lore from older editions is that it may not still be the case with 5th edition, but it's never been said that it isn't, so go ahead and use it if you want to.
We'll get into some of that later with the Beholders, because I read some horrifying things, Ben.
Oh god, I know. So that's really interesting. So my what's the word? My like take on Mind Flayers is that they are, and this is kind of like the typical kind of, you run into Mind Flayers, this is what you get kind of thing, is that they are in small colonies all over the place. And let's focus on Faerun because that's the typical 5th edition setting. They're all around the place, hidden away in small little colonies. There's a few of them. If they're an advanced colony, they'll have an elder brain, and if they're a really advanced colony, they'll be like kidnapping people and making them their thralls and eating lots of their brains and probably taking over some nearby area. With the mission being, and all Mind Flayers' mission being, that we will eventually rebuild to a point of being in control of the known universes again.
Pretty typical megalomaniacs, to be honest.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, they're good stereotypical bad guys. But them being, when I say like, oh, we're going to be in charge of the known universe, that's when things get a little bit beyond Faerun as a setting, because it kind of implies the whole Spelljammer, planes of existence kind of level of, that's kind of the level of megalomaniac we're talking about.
Yeah, it is mentioned though in Fifi that they have nautiloids, and obviously they've popped up a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean, there's one in, okay, spoilers, I suppose. They're not really, they don't come into the plot, but there is a nautiloid in Dungeon of the Mad Mage.
Mm-hmm.
No, it might not be a nautiloid, actually. It might be a squid ship. There is a Spelljammer ship of some sort in Dungeon of the Mad Mage and a helm that is listed as a magic item. And there is a crashed nautiloid in Rime of the Frost Maiden. And that one is a nautiloid. Yeah. And then there's a lot of art of Spelljammer and nautiloid ships in Tasha's. And we know there's been calls for Spelljammer stuff, but that's kind of all there's been in 5th edition, is literally those references. So we know that lore exists and that is still their quote-unquote history, but it's not built on any more than a passing reference.
Yeah, for the most part, when we're speaking about 5e, they mostly tend to come out from the Underdark.
Yeah.
Just because they don't like the sun, which is another thing I read. Some Elder Brains want to literally get strong enough to extinguish the sun.
Because why not?
Because it'll allow them to, take over the surface and rule in an empire of darkness forever.
Mm. Yeah, it wouldn't, destroying the sun wouldn't completely undo the whole world in any way, shape or form either, but it's fine. You'd think as a brain you'd work that out, but, if I destroy the gravity source in this universe...
But it's the same with all supervillains. They always want to destroy the world, but, what's the point?
Then you've got nothing to rule. Yeah, you idiot. And for a creature with a ridiculous high intelligence, you'd think they'd know that, but anyway. But yeah, so there's that kind of surface lore, And you can go deeper with it. Like you can, especially if you're reading up. So in Volo's Guide to Monsters, it gives you about like their colonies. It tells you more about Ceramorphosis, which is the tadpole. I mean, we all know about it now. We've seen Baldur's Gate 3. It goes in your eye, and it
love that trailer.
Yeah, slowly turns you into a Mind Flayer. Yeah, if you want to get a good sense, go and look up the Baldur's Gate 3 intro cinematic. That'll give you some good Mind Flayer feels. And then it also talks about how their colonies are set up, what the Elder Brains are, how Illithids become Elder Brains. So if you're going to use them, like, read all of that stuff because it's there, you know, and it's good stuff. But the fun things I think, to make something out of this iconic creature, and tell me what you think, James. I would definitely use a couple of tropes. One of them is the solo Mind Flayer.
Yeah.
Because there are a couple places that say, you know, if there's a Mind Flayer on its own, it's probably an outcast of some sort. And you can do that in a ton of ways. You can do it as a Mind Flayer who has learnt magic, an Alhoon, who puts one of its tentacles in its own mouth to use as a tongue to cast spells. Like, that's creepy in itself. You can do it in the sense of a Mind Flayer that has got so strong in its colony that it needs to go and create its own Elder Brain and become its own Elder Brain, because otherwise the current Elder Brain will like try and destroy it and consume it.
That's your Uliferids.
Yeah, who are very strong. Or you can have one that's like gone a little bit wrong and isn't really a Mind Flayer, and that comes out of the botched Ceramorphosis stuff, which you find in Volos, which is really cool, because a big iconic thing for Mind Flayers is that they are a hive mind.
Yeah.
And I don't think there is any other creature, I could be wrong, I think there's any other creature in D&D that's a hive mind.
Not off the top of my head. I imagine there's probably at least one other that is some kind of hive mind.
It would be surprising if there wasn't, yeah. But that's so iconic. So you can have some person has gone through Ceramorphosis and become a Mind Flayer, but they have retained something of their old life. So maybe it's a tune that they hum, or I don't know, a phrase that they say, or something.
Yeah.
Something about their old self they've kept. And so all of the other Mind Flayers connected to them are going to be like, well, that's not right. Let's nip that in the bud. So you can have a Mind Flayer that's escaped the colony and wants to destroy the colony and become normal again because it's realised that it wasn't a Mind Flayer before. That's actually a really sad story. That would be so heartbreaking.
Like, a person has literally lost their entire being and body, and they're not even accepted by their new overlords and masters.
Yeah, when you put it like that, I don't feel bad for the overlords and masters. But yeah, so I think there's lots of ways, and just one more thing to touch on before we jump into using it mechanically. The hive mind thing, like, there's such a tension, and I don't think I've actually experienced this as a player. For all the times that I've experienced Mind Flayers and Illithids, they've always been only a few or a couple, like one or maybe like three. If you really want to chuck your players in on the deep end with Mind Flayers, and bear in mind the standard Mind Flayer stat block is a CR7, you have them go to a colony, like an actual colony that has an Elder Brain, that has Kawatoa, or like slaves, or just people from the village they're pulling down and they haven't eaten yet, who are doing their bidding for them, and the players know that they cannot be seen by a single Mind Flayer, because if they are, the whole colony knows they're there.
It's pretty much, and even then it's pretty much impossible to sneak up on a colony, just because of the Elder Brain is literally just aware of everything in a certain distance around it.
Yeah, so that's like hard mode. I mean, you could have a colony without an Elder Brain. Like maybe the player's mission is that they have to get down there and disrupt everything before they turn the Alhoon into the Ulithid into the Elder Brain. Like that's so cool. That's so cool, and so tense as a player too.
Yeah.
Go on. You were going to say something.
I've forgotten.
Oh, sorry.
It's gone. I'm currently in the Underdark in an Illithid colony, just dreaming of the time I killed Joe. And, good times.
Poor man. I mean, he's had his brain eaten like 3 times.
I think he has, yeah.
By both of us as well. Like,
yeah, and I can technically be considered culpable for the other one as well, because I was using him as a meat shield.
Yeah, that's true. It was your fault. Yeah, it's always your fault. So, Mind Flayers in a mechanical combat then are really cool. There's one thing I want to put in your mind before we talk about this, and that is from the 3rd Drizzt Do'Urden novel, when they are escaping the Underdark, and I think like 3 or 4 Mind Flayers descend from the ceiling.
Yeah. From the
stalagmites or stalactites, whichever one it is. Keep that image in your brain. That's the kind of like a creepy humanoid squid man descending from the darkness of the cave ceiling. That's the kind of vibe I want to go for here.
In perfect silence.
Yeah, because they don't make any sound. So Mind Flayers have magic resistance, which is great. They have some innate psionic spellcasting, which is detect thoughts and levitate, and then once a day they can plane shift and dominate monster. They have their tentacles, which is a melee attack, which they are probably not going to want to use. They have extract brain, which once they've got someone grappled, they can just eat your brain. And they had mind blast, which is is it a cone? I believe
it's a cone.
Yeah, and it's a recharge on a 5 or 6 of a d6. So Mind Flayers are so interesting in the sense that they're built around being these creatures that dominate other creatures. You know, they grab them and take control of them, but their dominate monster feature doesn't really allow them to do that because it's concentration. It only lasts 24 hours. It's within 30 feet, which a Mind Flayer does not want to be that close. So there are a couple of suggestions that Keith makes in his book about maybe changing that to either be the vampire's charm feature. Dominate monster isn't 24 hours. I got that wrong, but yeah, that's the charm feature, 24 hours. Maybe using the Aboleth's enslave feature, or potentially changing dominate monster to a Gaia spell, that kind of effect.
Yeah.
So if you're going to run that idea of if you want to use the Mind Flayer in the iconic way of taking control of a party, look at changing that for sure. And then in combat, I would have the Mind Flayer levitating, so it's away from melee.
Yes.
And we always talk about giving minions. The Mind Flayer's minions are just people who are meat shields, and he is controlling them, or it is controlling them, and it puts them literally in front of it to be like a meat shield that can go and grapple
you
players.
have to have minions with Mind Flayers because they are so frail. Like physically, they're easy to hit. They don't have buckets of HP. So if you don't have minions running interference, you're just not going to do them justice.
Yeah, and obviously they've got the typical intellect devourer, which looks like it's going to be an easy kill, but if you've got a few of them, they suddenly become very deadly. So chuck a couple of those in, and then if you've got your players going to an illithid colony that's stealing people from the village, have the village people, that band is everywhere now, have them be the things running interference, because the players aren't going to want to kill them if they're good people. You know, they're not going to want to put their swords through Cassie the barmaid.
Yeah, but if you really want to put it on hard mode, you combo them with minions that can incapacitate. Because the moment you're incapacitated, you're dead. It will come over and it will melt through your skull and scoop out your brain.
I would argue that the Mind Flayer won't eat a brain if it's in immediate danger, but it could definitely come over and use the extract brain, because they are intelligent. Mind Flayers have a base Mind Flayer is intelligent of 19, so they are intelligent to know that if you're knocked out, they could come over, extract your brain just to stop you from being a problem from coming back, and then leave your brain to eat later as a snack.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to say about Mind Flayers? I realise we're spending a lot of time. We've got 2 more things to touch on.
Yes, one thing very quickly. Have a person they rescue, when they get to the final boss room, literally transform in the middle of the battle.
Oh yes, that's a lot of fun. Yeah, if they save someone from the colony, let them potentially work out whether they've been under ceremorphosis, but make it hard, because then if they don't work it out, and you can leave clues like the person coughing or having pain or something, don't just randomly set clues. I think is the best thing to do. You don't want to just be random, but set some clues, some foreshadowing, and then have them suddenly hit the floor, scream, and then tentacles sprout out of their chin. So cool, so cool. And then they suddenly lost the person they came to save.
Yep, I did that one to you. It was good fun.
I mean, it was fun for you, you sicko. Okay, let's go and talk about Beholders.
I think someone's just bitter, but oh well.
Yeah, well, it's fine because I didn't want to save her anyway. Because she would have been a problem down the line for another player character. So, Beholders. Now, I wanted to leave Beholders until last because they are literally on the front of the monster manual. And also, I've kind of talked about them a lot with Xanathar being a key NPC in my game.
Yes.
Beholders are on page 26 of the Monster Manual, and as you know, they are big spherical creatures with 10 eye stalks and a big central eye and a big scary mouth. They have an anti-magic cone from their central eye and lots of different eye rays that come out of their eye stalks that do nasty things to people who get in the way. They are one of my favourite creatures. I don't know if you knew this, James.
Yeah, I might have noticed with
you might have guessed
your depiction of the Xanafer just being so good and clearly so well practiced.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that's what I do in the mirror. I just pretend to be a beholder every day. It's how I get myself confident. I don't do mantras. I just talk to myself as if I were a beholder, because beholders love themselves so much. They are xenophobic to a T. They even to the point where they think that other beholders aren't perfect and are below them, and so are just the perfect thing to pretend you're being when you want to beef yourself up. Just pretend you're a beholder. Try it, honestly. Give it a go. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, look in the mirror, just look in it and just say, oh, you are God. You're beautiful. Your many eyes look fantastic today. It really works. But yeah, they are xenophobic. They are paranoid, that's a key trait. And they are aggressive and hateful and greedy. They're an aberration. And there are lots of different versions of them. So you've got the Beholder, the Death Tyrant, the Spectator, the Gazer. There's lots of different versions of Beholders. They're a lot of fun to use. A couple of things I want to talk about really quickly in using a Beholder in an iconic way. Obviously, you've got the standard. He is, it is, she is, they are the boss of the dungeon, who is using other minions as a lower form of slave, kind of slave, kind of like worker.
Yeah.
That's the typical kind of iconic way. I would also say a really great way to use an iconic beholder is to, again, subvert the expectations a little bit, have them be just a little bit different. So in, I think it's, I'm looking at my books, I want to say Volos. I could be wrong. In one of the books, there are statistics for rolling up beholders and giving them different skin colors and eye rays and things. Use those and then give them personality traits as well. If every beholder you come across is massively paranoid, it gets old quickly.
Yeah.
I think if you have one that's paranoid and one that's a little bit paranoid, but also, loves to feel rain on its skin, so secretly has a tunnel that goes to the surface of the world to go and feel the rain every once in a while. That's a bit weird. I love it.
Things like that are really good as well, because they're things your players can pick up on and then try and exploit.
Yeah, with that beholder, you could just camp around find its secret tunnel and then camp around it and wait for it to come out on its own at night.
I think another fun way of using beholders is that they can obviously be summoned by wizards in order to be given a task of guarding something. So you can have literally just them set to guard a corridor in a dungeon no matter what. They don't even have to be the final boss. They can just be a roadblock on the way.
Yeah. So I think a lot of my fun ideas for beholders come from other settings. So for example, in Spelljammer, beholders are the complete opposite of on Faerun, and they actually get on with each other, and they can be friendly, and they can be these interesting creatures that like look after each other and have ships and work together.
In the Neverwinter MMO, they there's a mission where they have like a little beholder convention.
Mm-hmm.
And they all like wear little hats and stuff, and you've got like sneak in, and that's pretty cool.
And of course, you just met in a little game a very iconic beholder known as Large Luigi, who is a beholder who runs a bar. Like, there are so many interesting things you can do with these creatures outside of the standard iconic evil tyrant, but you definitely should run that first and then subvert the expectations the next time they meet a beholder.
Yeah, how you had us all, we were like, oh no, beholder, we're literally quivering in our boots, and then, oh, it's friendly.
This is strange, yeah. And that's bang on what you want when you're trying to take something and flipping on its head and make it its own icon in that way. Beholders in this beautiful book that we have a massive section, and I read it thoroughly before I had that fight with the Xanathar. Beholders are quite intelligent. They have a 17 base intelligence if you're using a standard beholder, and they have the ability to the beholder shoots 3 of its eye rolls, and you roll to see what rays it shoots, right? So you roll a d10, and if you roll a 2, it has a paralyzing ray. Now this is the standard stat block. You can change what rays they have, but because they're intelligent, they don't randomly shoot eye rays. You randomly pick which eye rays it's shooting, but the beholder can target a certain person with that eye ray. And because they have intelligence, after a round or 2, they're going to know who is strong and who is dexterous and who is a bit more wise than the other people. So my advice is to get a beholder up high because they float. They can't go prone, so get them up away from the creatures. As soon as they know who the caster is, they focus the anti-magic eye on them, and then they use their other rays to kind of experiment. So, okay, I've rolled a paralyzing ray, I'm going to shoot it at this person. Oh, it didn't quite affect them, I'm going to shoot it at this person. Oh, it did affect them. Okay, I now know that my eye rays that do that kind of effect are going to work strong against that person. That's how I would run them.
That is the best, I think, perfect way of running them. Any creature that can levitate or float, there is almost no reason it should ever come within melee range of somebody.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. We haven't talked about Flayers, really, apart from with the Owlbear a little bit, but the beholders do have lair actions as well, so it's worth making the most of those. And beholders are paranoid, so they will have plans as well. So you give your beholder, if you're trying to make it iconic, give it an interesting lair. Make sure it uses its lair actions, and give it an escape plan as well. If your beholder has a disintegration ray, it has definitely used it to build a tunnel that leaves its lair, and it can just fly off down it.
And if you really want to go hard on it, because they are paranoid, have them have multiple escape plans.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So even as the players foil one, it just turns around and it has a completely different plan to get out, because you foiled plan A, it's now got plans B through Z.
I have to say, what I learned with the Xanathar, and I learned with a lot of creatures, is that beholders are challenge rating CR 13. The Xanathar is a bit higher because he has magic rings on his eye stalks, which is something you should do. Oh my god, give your iconic beholder magic items. That's cool. But yeah, so I'm just picturing a beholder using its telekinesis eye ray to use a Holy Avenger. Just ridiculous, but it's also, that could be a lot of fun. But putting that beholder, that Xanathar, up against creatures who were not at level to fight it was so fun. I mean, you made yourselves level because you did a lot of research and you planned and you got items and stuff, but it's so fun because it makes them feel iconically scary.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact we could fly, because we all had potions of flight, kind of took it a little bit away from that. So
definitely.
Always be wary of things that let players fly, because it does just break things or can lessen the impact of something.
One thing I would say about running that Xanafer fight as well is that room was way too small for a beholder. That's how it's built for the adventure. But if you're gonna, what I should have done, I think, is try and pull the fight into that big audience chamber with where it can really fly up high and get out of range. So think about stuff like that.
Because we'd sort of ambushed him essentially.
Yeah, I mean, your planning all went off, so
yeah, it's beautiful.
It was beautiful. Do you have anything else to say on these big Mike Wazowski looking creatures?
Just have fun with them. Really go hard on the RP with them, because most of the fun with the Beholder is in their individual personalities, I think.
Yeah. As written, they have deep speech and undercommon, but they are clever and they can learn other languages, and you should utilize that for sure.
Yeah.
Sweet stuff. Okay, James, let's talk about dragons, but we need to keep it brief. We've got to keep it brief, my friend.
Okay, keeping it brief. Don't bother getting to melee range. Have it literally just fly around, breath weapon, fly around, recharge it, so on and so forth. Why would it bother getting down there? What would be the point? It can just kill from above.
I think one of the problems with dragons is people always put them in caves and things, and they can't fly anywhere. So yeah,
when they're in caves, and I've recently run an encounter like this. It was with a green dragon in a cave, and it had, when you have it in a cave, it either needs a large chamber and it needs minions. So when it's in that large chamber, have it hover in the air. It doesn't need to land. And have the minions running interference for it whilst its breath weapon recharges. Or even, if it can breathe underwater or burrow, have it hang around under the water or in the ground.
That's cool. Yeah, that's a lot of cool stuff. You can have them ambush in a way, then sort of pop up, attack, and go away like they would in flying. Obviously, there are lots of different types of dragons who have lots of different abilities and breath weapons. So, you know, they're all going to use them in different ways. But if you want to go back in time and listen to Joe and I talk about the blue dragon that I ran in my Welcome to Estroff campaign, I believe that's probably one of the best times I've ever run a dragon.
That was perfectly ran.
We talk all about setting it up, making it feel iconic, how it should work in combat, having that all set up and then pay off effectively as well. I don't know what episode number it is. I've got a feeling it's 50 something, but you'll see it. It's really obviously titled. It has like how to run an iconic dragon encounter in the title. So definitely go back and listen to that if you've got a dragon fight coming up, because that's one of our best episodes, I think.
Yeah.
And the lore for dragons is big, so we won't really touch into it, I don't think. But how can you sum it up for me, James? Because you know it better than I do.
Basically, as they get older, they get stronger. So in 50, it only goes up to Ancient. If you want stronger, you need to go back to previous editions where they get even older, bigger, and stronger. And you can find converted stat blocks on the internet, or there's things that'll do it for you.
You told me the name of what they were called the other day.
Great worms. So it goes like Ancient Worm and then Great Worm, and then the final stage is Twilight, which is where they've peaked and they're going to die. But they typically tend not to choose to just die. They either go Draco Lich, turn into a mountain, or go to a graveyard, eat all of their gold, and just depart this mortal coil.
Yeah, they're like, if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna either take you with me or take all of my goods with me.
Yes, they have to eat their entire horde.
That's
which I just love.
So stupid. I love it. Just you come, you're like, go and deal with the dragon for us. Okay, you get there and there's like half of its gold's gone and there's like 3 coins left.
Yeah.
If I quickly eat these gems, I will die and you won't have to deal with me. So just piss off.
Which could be a good quest, by the way. If perhaps people have noticed the dragon has gone missing, it might have gone to die, consumed its hoard. You could find where it went and see if there's anything left.
That's an iconic way of using a dragon. What a perfect way to sum up that the creature in the episode topic there. But yeah, and also look up gem dragons.
Yes, they're cool.
We'll leave that there. If you are going to run a dragon, there would be a really good helpful thing that could help you do that, which is maybe a book that talks about how to run them effectively in combat and make them ferocious and terrifying. So that book is a book called The Monsters Know What They're Doing. It's Combat Tactics for Dungeon Masters by Keith Amman. Keith Amman. I don't know how you say his surname.
That's how I'd say it, Amman.
We are not sponsored by Keith Amman. This is not a sponsored segment. I just really fucking love this book to the point that I told all my players to go get it, and they did. Go on, James.
Even if you're a player, it's worth getting and reading through, especially if you want to live.
Yes.
Especially if you know your DM's picked it up. And then, of course, there is its counterpart, which is the players know what they're doing, which is incredibly interesting, especially if you've not considered things like small unit tactics before.
Which is so cool, and you should definitely check that out too. And that is the much lighter and thinner version of the two books. But The Monsters Know What They're Doing, it's an incredible book, and I want to give it away. I want to impart somebody with the wisdom that is this tome, and it is a tome. It's a thick, nice hardback book. It looks wonderful on the bookshelf. So I'm going to be giving away a copy to one lucky listener. There will be a giveaway Instagram post. What? Yes, we are on Instagram at We Speak Common. You can find the link at wespeakcommon.com, and if you follow us on Twitter, it's through there. Go over there. There will be a post that goes up today, the day that this episode goes out, which is a Thursday. The date I do not know because my phone has died, and that is where my calendar is. But if you're listening to this on release day, the post will be there. Go and have a look. It will give you all the details on how you enter, which will include following and sharing the post, and I will pick one lucky winner after a week to buy a copy of this book for, so that you can use it to make your players have nightmares about all of the iconic creatures that you run. I was going to say give me your quick review, James, but I think you already have, to be honest.
Yeah, it's great. So interesting.
Yeah, and the art is beautiful as well.
Yes.
So head over to Instagram for that, at We Speak Common. If you want to find us anywhere else, at We Speak Common on Twitter, wespeakcommon.com for all the list of links, which will take you to a nice link tree. And pretty much everywhere you find podcasts on the internet. wespeakcommon@hotmail.com is how you get in touch. And if you want to be a Patreon, you get access to a amazing We Speak Common Discord server, if I do say so myself. Mostly amazing because of all the incredible patrons that are already in there chatting away daily. And we hang out in the Vibe Zone regularly. So come and join us in the Vibe Zone. James, dude, thank you for joining me again. I feel like whenever you come on the podcast, I just end up talking at you. But you, the things that you put in are always so valuable, even if limited. So
I do enjoy coming on, even if I'm not talking as much.
I do find that you are a silent individual who gives nuggets of wisdom when his words come out. So I appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to me about your favourite monsters.
Anytime.
Cheers, dude.
Especially if I get to eat your brain.
Okay, you made it weird. I think we're gonna end it there. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for listening today. If you like the show, do us a favour, leave us a like and review on your platform of choice, and share us with your friends. Send us to your fellow DMs and players so that we can build our community even more. It really helps to get us out in front of more eyes. If you want to support the show, you can by joining our Patreon. Links can be found in the show description and the episode descriptions on all platforms. The music in the podcast is Street Dancing by Timecrawler82. It's licensed under a Creative Commons license by NC. You can find it on the Free Music Archive.